Welcome back, and thank you for tuning into High School Apologetics. As you saw, maybe on the title of the podcast, we're here today with Robby Lashua. Robby, could you tell us, me and the viewers, kind of what you do and all of that?
Yeah, absolutely, Trip. Thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you asking me to be on the show. It's
Yeah, of
exciting.
course.
I really love what you're doing too. This is such an important thing to help other students know about apologetics. So my name's Robby Lashua. I'm currently a lead pastor at Palmcroft Church here in Phoenix, Arizona. I've been doing that for about 11 months and new to it. But before that, I was an apologist with Stand to Reason. And that's kind of where one of the places we met was at a reality
Yep.
conference, one of the student apologetics conference in Texas. Yeah, so I love theology. I love discipling people. I love apologetics and making sure we can equip people to know why they believe what they believe and to have confidence in it. And I like having confidence in it. I like knowing why I believe what I believe because I always think we should be following the truth wherever it leads. So, yeah, that's a little bit about me. I've got one wife, I've got 4 kids.
It's awesome.
I think yeah, it's great, man. My oldest is in 8th grade now, right? So she's going to junior high youth group and everything. It's so weird to me because I was a youth pastor for so long,
Hmm.
and now she goes, and I'm like, this is so crazy that I'm an old man. But that's where I find myself at. So
Yeah,
yep, but love the family, and yeah, God's been good, man. Just
that's
life and
awesome.
ministry, and yeah, leading the church right now. So
Yeah.
that's a little bit about me.
Well, I said to John, you and John have some of my dream jobs, so it's definitely awesome to see what you're doing. And yeah, I can relate to that. I turned 18, was it 3 days ago? So my mom kind of had a heart attack because I'm an adult now. And yeah,
Yeah.
as you mentioned, we met at that conference in Dallas. I remember a few years ago, Josh, my youth pastor, gave me. I was getting into apologetics. He was giving me like podcast books, and he mentioned Christ Culture and Coffee, which was a podcast I believe you used to do with Tyler.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
I got my Spotify Wrapped a couple days ago, and it was actually still for 3 years. It's been my number one podcast. I
Oh, that's awesome.
still listen to it a lot, especially in my free time. But it's definitely helped me get into the basics of apologetics and into the deeper questions. So
That's
it's
awesome, man.
yeah.
Yeah, that podcast was so much fun to do with Tyler, and we had like a good 3 years of doing it. I
Hmm.
think we almost had like 200 episodes or something.
Yeah, it
So
was
we touched on a ton of issues. It was great.
no, it's definitely helped me out a lot. Well, today we're talking about the problem of pain. But beforehand, I normally ask anybody that comes on, what is one, if you had to go to one apologetic book out of all the books you've read, what is your number one book that you could recommend to somebody that's getting into
On
apologetics?
this topic.
On this topic or just in general apologetics, like what's your number one
Oh,
go to?
oh man, that's hard, bro.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
trying to think. I've read so many apologetics books. Um, I think like a really important one to read, and it's not necessarily about apologetics, but it's more on the life of the mind and how as Christians we need to use our mind.
Mm-hmm.
That I love is J.P. Moreland's book, Love God with All Your Mind.
Yep.
I love that book, man. I try to read it every year just as a refresher on how important it is that we do use our minds for the Lord. And Christianity is not just about emotion and it's not just about serving. It's not just about the heart and the hands. It's about our head too. And so I would really recommend that to somebody who's getting into apologetics just to think through the theology of using our mind and why God gave us a mind. And then that could be like a springboard to getting into apologetics.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much. But again,
Yeah.
problem of pain is on today's episode. I would say probably one, if not the biggest, one of the biggest questions every religion and every person probably ask and is faced with. I've seen it in my life where there's times where you have to like take a step back, and I think everybody asks that question: Why is there so much pain and suffering in the world? And Christians, we've seen it been asked a lot. You know, we've had a lot of influential people that have stepped down from that to say, I forgot what atheist it was, but he took a step back because he said, I can't believe in Christianity just because of how much pain I see in the world.
Mhm.
Um, but we also see people like C.S. Lewis who have asked that question, and it's done quite the opposite, where we went
Yeah.
from atheist to, I actually have it with me, Mere Christianity, where he asked it, and it actually helped him point to God. So
Mhm.
hopefully we can break that all down today. I just want to start off with, if you had to like define the question, the problem of pain, what's a good way you can define that question as?
Yeah, I think a classic way that it's been asked seriously for thousands of years.
Mhm.
David Hume kind of coined this in his own time, but it had been around in Greek philosophy for a long time.
Yeah.
It would really be saying if your Christian God is all loving and all powerful, then why does evil exist? And so they would kind of make an equation out of it and say, okay, so he can either be all loving but not all powerful, and evil exists. So it
Mhm.
means he really wishes he could help, but he's helpless. He's not powerful enough to stop it.
Yeah.
Or he could be all powerful but not all loving, so he just doesn't
Mhm.
care to stop it. But if he is all powerful, like you Christians say, and he's all loving, like you Christians say, then evil wouldn't exist,
Mhm.
therefore your Christian God can't exist. That's kind of the way that atheists would put it. And it's not a bad argument, to be honest. It's a pretty good syllogism in if this then that.
Yep.
And I've seen a lot of people hear that and go, "Oh man, I've never thought about that." Yeah, why do we believe that there's an all powerful and all loving God if evil is still here? And that's where, as Christians, we do have to answer the question why God allows evil.
Yeah. Yeah, no, and that was my next question, was gonna be, what makes this question such a big challenge for Christians? But we see it, I wouldn't even say such a big challenge for Christians. I believe, this is a question that all religions have to answer, 'cause,
Hmm.
I believe Sean McDowell talked about it in, one of his videos, and as well as when he came down to Arkansas for a conference, he said every religion and everybody's faced with this question. It's hard. He even claimed, like, we can't necessarily give an exact answer to every single reason this and this happens. We don't
Hmm.
know God's mind on that. But what we can say is what religion gives the best answer to that question. Or it helps people see it from our side. And
Yes.
we believe Christians, we can that Jesus helps us see it the best. And so,
Yeah.
like I just asked, is there any more points that what makes this question such a big challenge for Christians?
Well, I think that the big challenge is that we all know that evil's out there, and we've all experienced it. And I think it's important too to distinguish between two types of evil,
Hmm.
because there's or not two types of evil, two aspects of this problem of evil or the problem of pain. One is there's like the logical side to it.
Hmm.
Okay, so like why does God let this stuff happen? And we can talk a ton about that. I think there's a lot of good answers. But the other side is the emotional problem, right? So
Hmm.
you have the logical and
Yep.
the emotional. And the emotional problem is when we go through extreme pain or we go through extreme tragedy in our life and we're hurting, and how do we help people in that? And
Yeah.
there are two different answers, to be honest. Like knowing the logical can help you when you're going through the emotional, but when someone's going through the emotional, the worst thing you could do is sit them down and give them the a logical apologetics argument as to why we need to comfort, we need to bear one another's burdens, like Scripture says, weep with those who weep. And so again, knowing the difference between those two, the emotional and the logical problem,
Hmm.
is really helpful. But we have the emotional problem because we know this isn't the way things are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I think is amazing, even about, atheists or Buddhists or Hindu, whoever, everybody, when they experience tragedy, feels deep loss because they know deep down this isn't the way it was supposed to go. And I think that points to a creator who made things good in the first place. And we know things are upside down just based on our experiences.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I was gonna say there are, I have it written down, emotional versus intellectual. I've definitely, what you said, you definitely don't want to answer someone. We often hear like, I was bullied as a kid, brother is dying of cancer, something terrible, terrible, terrible like this. And oftentimes we can get it wrong by sitting them down and telling, well, by you asking this question, you're proving the existence of God, and just attacking the
Sure.
intellectual side, when
Yeah.
sometimes people are asking out of just a pure emotional question. And with Jesus, I believe, I'm trying to remember what book it says, but we are supposed to weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who are rejoicing.
Yep.
And I see it in him, I have it written down, Habakkuk 1, 2 through 3. How long, Lord, must I call for help? And you do not listen or cry. Well, I mean, these are Habakkuk. he even asked this question, so it's not even outside of a Bible. Like this is inside the Bible. We see this question being asked.
Yeah.
So it's definitely big. But what would you say are the two different types, moral versus natural evil? How would you explain the two types?
Yeah, so I think it's important. This is a great question because it's important for Christians to understand. We believe that there's moral evil,
Mhm.
and that would be the evil that free moral agents commit against one another. So if
Mhm.
I lied to you, if I murdered you, if I slandered you, those types of things. I think angels can do it, or demons, right? Demons can do moral evil, and humans can do moral evil. So we're familiar with that. That's just sin. Natural evil is interesting because that would be how the world is broken. When we go to Genesis 1, God creates everything and he says over and over again, it's good, it's good, it's good. And then he gets down to creating human beings. And what does he say? He says it's very good, right? It's
Mhm.
very good. So that's it. That's interesting. So if he makes everything good, then you have to ask, okay, where did the bad come from?
Yeah.
And it's Genesis 3 at the fall. And I love what happens not love what happens at the fall. I love that God records what happens because
Mhm.
it helps us establish this idea of natural evil. So Adam and Eve, right? God comes to them. Where are you? What did you do? We ate of the tree, that whole thing. And he curses the serpent. And then he comes to Eve and he doesn't curse the woman. He just says your pain's going to be increased in childbirth and you're going to have a desire for your husband, but he'll rule over you. And then he comes to Adam and he doesn't curse the man. He says, cursed is the ground.
Mhm.
That this is really interesting to me. So okay, cursed is the ground because of you, Adam. That statement is huge because number one, human beings aren't the cursed ones, and number two, we see that at the fall, human beings broke the earth. They broke the good thing that God made in the way He created it to be. And there's a connection between Adam and the ground. The word for Adam is Adam in Hebrew, and the word for ground is Adamah, because he was taken from it.
Yeah.
So there's this connection, and there's also a connection of rulership over it, right? God gave mankind the earth to rule over. Now our relationship with God is broken and fractured, spiritual death. But now our relationship of ruling and reigning on this earth is also broken. And so animals don't listen to us anymore, man. They eat us. I live in Phoenix. The temperature is horrible here in the summer. It's not really listening to what human
Eh,
beings want.
Arkansas is
Um,
not too much better. I cannot lie.
yeah. So everything's backwards now. So
Mhm.
the thing we were supposed to rule over is kind of ruling over us. And we have to protect ourselves from it. We have to build shelter. We have to create air conditioning. We have to create medicine, all
Yeah.
this stuff. So natural evil would be the result of Adam and Eve breaking the world.
Yeah.
And Paul talks about this in Romans. He talks about how creation longs for the sons of God to be revealed. And he says that they were subjected, that the creation itself was subjected to futility, and he's referencing by Adam. And then he says, and it's been in pangs of childbirth, right? And
Mhm.
so Paul's saying Adam and Eve broke the earth, and things have been backwards since Genesis 3. So natural evil for us would be again, moral evil is sin we commit against one another. Natural evil are the evils that we see happen kind of in the natural realm just by living in a broken environment
Yeah.
is kind of the idea. And there's a few ways to break those down. One of the ways is natural evils that are sort of halfway caused by free-willed creatures or human beings. So, like a forest fire that's started by a cigarette getting thrown out the window, or by arson, even, right? And
Mhm.
so the forest fire then takes over from human agency causing it, and then it doesn't stop itself; it just spreads. Or you could think of like fetal alcohol syndrome, right? Where a mother drinks excessively while she's pregnant and it damages the child. And then the child develops in a broken sense. So that would be one type of natural evil where there is some human agency. Another type would be disorders caused by genetic malfunction.
Yeah.
So you think about somebody being blind, or born without an arm or a leg, things like that.
Mhm.
Why does that happen? Because things are broken.
Yeah.
And it doesn't happen directly because of sin in people's lives. Jesus talked about this in John 9, 1-3. You remember him and his disciples are passing by a blind man,
Yeah.
and his disciples asked him, Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he would be born blind? They're assuming he's being punished because of his sin or his
Mhm.
parents' sin.
Mhm.
And then what's Jesus say? He says, it was neither that this man sinned nor his parents, but it was so that the works of God might be displayed in him. And then Jesus heals him. So Jesus is making the claim that every disorder that people are born with isn't a result of moral evil. There's this other thing out there,
Mhm.
natural evil. There's two other types of natural evil. One would be natural disasters that aren't produced by free moral agents. So you think of like a forest fire started by lightning,
Yeah.
tsunamis, earthquakes, all that kind of stuff. We didn't cause that. The world's just broken.
Mhm.
And then the last one would be diseases that result from virus or bacteria. So, cancer, leukemia, the flu, bubonic plague, all of those types of things would be natural evil. And so, as Christians, because we believe God created the world good, we do have to account, where did these things come from? Where did moral evil come from? Where did natural evil come from? And I think it's very clear in scripture that Genesis 3 is where both moral evil and natural evil had their origin.
Mhm. No, that's perfect. And you kind of mentioned it, but I talked about it earlier. Habakkuk 1, where he asked the question, but even we get a response where look at the nations and observe, be astounded, for I'm doing something in your days that you will not believe when you hear about it.
Mm.
So, like, we're told that we may not see it in our day, but it could be working for the greater good.
Mhm,
And I think that's something that can C.S. Lewis even talks about, that points to the existence of God, that can help us. And I love in Mere Christianity, he says, my argument against God was that the universe seemed so cruel and unjust. But how had I got this idea of just and unjust? A man does not call a line crooked unless he has some idea of a straight line. What was I comparing the universe when I called it unjust? I love,
mhm,
and I believe that changed, that helped give a very unique perspective on it, because he says what it's kind of like this form of. I love Sean McDowell uses an example. He says a wrench, something that was created for a specific purpose. How does it go bad? Well, it might be broken, but it might kind of get rust. I think rust is a perfect example. It's something that was good now has turned bad. Or he uses the example of tooth decay. Tooth decay,
mhm.
something it's had to start good, but it's eventually turned bad.
Yeah.
But then we also, what you mentioned, we have free will, the fall in the garden, all those things play in hand. Another question for you: why does suffering feel like such a strong argument against God?
Well, I think that one of the reasons the atheists use it, and I do think it's their best argument. I don't
Mhm.
think it's good, but I think it's the best one that they have because it appeals to emotion. It really does. And now, again, I'm not trying to get out of answering this as a Christian. We have to have good answers for this, which I think I have tons of good reasons why God allows evil.
Absolutely.
But they're appealing to the emotion of it because they know everybody goes through horrific suffering. They've gone through horrific suffering. I mean, to be a human being for any period of time means you've suffered and you've experienced evil from other people or from the natural realm. And so I think when they poke God in the face with that, and saying, you say you love us, then you would stop evil. That's what they're getting to. If you loved us, you would make us have a life free of evil and make us happy. And I don't think that's the truth. I think that's an assumption that they're making, but that's kind of what they're appealing to. If God was really loving to you, he'd make your life easy and perfect and happy. And I don't know if that's true, man. I mean, think about it, like, if you want to be a bodybuilder, weightlifter, football player, and somebody said, if your coach really loved you, he would just let you eat donuts all day and not work out because that's hard and that
Mhm.
hurts. Well, maybe he has a reason to push you through some suffering in order to accomplish a greater purpose. And that's where their whole argument falls apart. That whole he can't be all loving and all
I was
good,
about to mention it.
or all
Exactly.
powerful, right? Because it's a false dilemma, really. They're saying he either has to be just one or the other, or he doesn't exist. And that's not true. A false dilemma is when someone's giving us just two options when there's a third or a fourth available, but they're kind of putting us into a corner. I always like to use this illustration like, you know, if I said to you, Trip, was last night the first time you beat your grandma with a baseball bat, or have you beat her with a bat before? What's the right answer?
No, like
Yeah,
I've not
exactly.
done
No,
that.
no. And I said, no, no, that's not what I asked. I asked, have you done it? Was last night the first time, or have you done it before? See, I'm painting you into a corner, right?
Mhm,
And if that's a false dilemma. The real answer is I've never beat my grandma with a
yeah.
baseball bat, right?
I
That's
love
a third way, third way out.
I
Yeah,
love asking, I've asked my girlfriend it 1,000 times, "Can God make a rock so big that he can't lift it?
sure.
Or can he make a burrito so big he can't eat it?" I those are some of my favorites, that I kinda like asking to get people to be like, "Well," and then you see them wonder on it, but it's exactly how you put it. You're only giving 2 answers.
Yeah, so whenever we encounter false dilemmas, we have to say, well, if there's a third way out, then I God could still be all loving and all powerful and allow evil if he has a reason for it. And the cool thing for us is to defeat that entire argument, all we have to do is show that there could be a possible reason he allows it. We don't even have to prove that it is a good reason for him allowing it. We just have to show this is a possible reason for it. But again, going back to what you asked, I think the assumption they make is that God wants to make your life easy and happy. And I don't think anywhere in scripture we see that that's God's purpose for us. I think his purpose for us is to save us and to have us grow close to him and to have us know him forever, which is what eternal life is, according to John 17.
Mhm. And, we mentioned it earlier, but when answering the question versus emotional versus intellectual, how do you think we should, as Christians, need to go about like answering that question? Are there questions we can ask to get to decide whether they're asking it emotionally or intellectually, and like how do we go about understanding that?
Yeah, I think that when somebody brings this up to us, it's a nice and kind thing to do to ask them a question and say, "Hey, when you're asking me this question, do you want me to give you like the logical reason?" I mean, I'd bring that up, the logical response, or have you recently gone through something that's really hurting you?
Hmm.
You know what I mean? I think it's a
Yeah,
fair question. And if they say, no, I just want to know like the logical reasons you think this, okay, great. We can talk about that easy. But, if they start tearing up or they say, yeah, my mom just got a cancer diagnosis and I don't get why God would do that. Right.
yeah,
Well, then you're going to take a different approach. At first, you want to acknowledge, I'm so sorry you're going through this hard time. Like this is horrible, right? And I would comfort them and say, "What can I do to help? Like, can I pray for your mom? Can I pray for you?" Like, I would offer like help. Do you need meals? Like, what do you guys need? Because we want to be there for you.
hmm,
But I also, would want to point out, hey, in Christianity, we have a God who came to earth and he experienced all the kinds of suffering we do. His dad died when he was a kid. He was brought up by a single mom. His family hated him. His brothers didn't like him at all. He was a refugee. He was abused by his own people. The system of the Jerusalem was against him. I mean, all these things. Like it's literally like everything we could go through. He went through. He was abused. He was taken advantage of. He had a friend betray him. All of that stuff. So I would say, and then in Hebrews it tells us that we don't have a high priest who can't empathize with our every weakness. Jesus knows these hurts because he came here and he lived it and he experienced it. And because he knows them, he can comfort us. And so I think that's a really helpful approach, especially to believers, right? That
yeah,
Jesus knows the pain you're going through. And I want to be his hands and feet here and help you. So
yeah,
I think that's a appropriate way to, go about the emotional problem and just being with your friends, literally crying with them when they're hurting. Those types of
yeah.
things I think are a good approach for the emotional side. But if it's the intellectual, then I would start going through here's reasons why God allows evil. And I have I think 9 reasons I think God allows evil.
Yeah, and I think this is one of the things that makes Christianity's approach to suffering unique. Jesus' suffering on the cross is one of the ways how we see pain and how we
Mhm.
describe it through the Bible. Again, what we talked about at the beginning of the episode, it's what gives like the best answer to that question, and it's not because we know all the answers, because I certainly do not. And so it's something that makes it unique. Another question, does the Bible promise that God will remove all suffering in this life?
No. Jesus is pretty clear about suffering in this life.
Mhm.
I'm teaching through John at the church right now, and all throughout John, he keeps saying stuff like, "In this world, you will have trouble. But take heart, I've overcome the world. If they hate me, they'll hate you. If they persecuted me, they'll persecute you." Like he was pretty upfront with what's going to happen in this world because he says the world is run by Satan. Satan's the prince of the power of the air, and
Yeah.
he's ruling this, and so the system of the world is anti-God. And so, if we're God's people and his representatives and we're standing for him, we will be persecuted and attacked. So Jesus is very clear on pain and suffering in the Christian life. So much so, I mean, he even told Peter, "You're going to die. You're going
Mhm.
to be a martyr." Right? I mean,
Mhm.
so I think the whole idea that God has a wonderful, easy plan for your life, and you're going to get a Mercedes if you just pray hard enough. That is not what Jesus taught anywhere. And I know some Christian groups like to teach that kind of stuff, but no, the Bible's very clear that in this life we're going to have suffering. And then aside from the Bible, man, through my observation, everybody I know dies.
Yeah.
I don't know about you, but everybody
Mhm.
I know dies and gets old and your body stops working the way it's supposed to. And so that's the bigger question is like we're not even asking just like where is God when evil intrudes on my life in a painful way through a cancer diagnosis, a child dying, a car accident taking my mom, whatever. Those are horrific, right?
Yeah.
But the bigger question is why does he let everybody die? That's
Mhm.
what we got to be able to answer. Why does everybody suffer and then die and get to watch everybody they care about suffer and then die? And so that's the task at hand for the Christian is to say what's going on here. But the other thing, bro, that we got to remember is that we don't let people with a different worldview off the hook.
Mhm.
They also have to answer that
Yeah,
question.
absolutely.
And we have a savior who broke into our existence, came here, became one of us to experience this life and to die in our place so he can fix the problem of evil ultimately. He hasn't done it yet, but he's in the process of moving us toward heaven. The atheist has no answer. The Hindu tries to ignore it and says it doesn't even exist. I mean, so the other options of there is no answer, the universe is cruel, or I just don't even think it's a real thing, even though you're tragically crushed by it, those are so inadequate
Yeah.
compared with the Christian answer that no, it's real, but God came to save us from it.
Absolutely. Yeah, no. And what this podcast is titled is, not this episode, but it's high school apologetics. One of the things I love to do, and it was kind of I call it ministry, is help high schoolers understand the defense we have for our faith. Because growing up, I had a lot of doubts, and that's something certainly Jesus can handle is all of our doubts, and
Yeah.
we see it. So, what is one thing you would say to every high schooler to understand about pain and faith?
Yeah, I would say number one, you're gonna have really tragic things happen to you in this life and you're going to suffer. There's
Mhm.
no way out of it. And I would say that if you're a believer, the Bible promises that even though we walk through the valley of the shadow of death, we fear no evil because God's with us. Jesus is
Absolutely.
literally God with us. And so even though we're going to walk through the valley, we're still going to have the God of the universe there with us through it. And so there's a comforter, there's the Prince of Peace, and it doesn't mean it's easy. That's not what I'm saying at all. But we do have a hope that he's with us in and through it. We're not alone. And we have a hope that in the future, our body's literally going to be eradicated from all types of evil.
Yeah.
And we're going to be with him forever and ever in the very good world he intended to create. So for the Christian, I would say that. For the non Christian student, I would push them and say, well, what's your answer to it? Because you can be mad at a God you don't believe in, which is odd because I've never been mad at leprechauns in my entire life. But that's where people are with God when they don't think he exists. They're really mad at him for some reason. And I would say, but what's your answer? You have to answer it too.
Mhm.
And you don't like it as an atheist, but you can't even say it's really evil. It's just the way things are. It's just the way the universe evolved. So I would push them into that, finding their own answer on their own worldview instead of just trying to get mad at the God they don't think's real. Because that sets them off to go, okay, yeah, what do I think about this?
Yeah.
Why do I think these things are happening? Why do I think anything's evil, to be honest? Why
Yeah.
do I feel yucky inside about this stuff? Why does it make me so emotional?
Yeah.
And then I hope that that pushes them. I honestly, I think that's one of the reasons why God lets death loom over all of our heads, is to make us wake up to reality and go, okay, where's this all going? Where am I going
Yeah.
after I'm gone? Where did my mom or my dad or my grandparents go when they died? I think that it's really like a wake up call that we have an expiration date, and God uses that to draw people to Himself.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And maybe for people getting into apologetics or maybe just trying to really figure out that question, what are some resources that you think would be helpful? Maybe verses or books that would be helpful?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would read through the Psalms if you want to talk about pain,
Yeah.
because one of the cool things about the real God is that He's okay with us complaining to Him. One third of the Psalms are depressing lament Psalms, right? Where
Hmm.
David's complaining about stuff. Why? Why don't you listen to me? Where are you? It seems like you're letting my enemies win all the time, and I'm just over here trying to do the right thing, and you never
Yep.
help. Like there's a ton of Psalms that are like that. So I think reading those is comforting because you go, okay, if we can really be honest and authentic with our complaints to God,
Hmm.
He listens. He doesn't get offended at that.
Yeah.
A second book though that I highly recommend is by one of my mentors from Biola, Clay Jones. It's called Why God Allows Evil, and it's great, man. And he gets into all the reasons why and the whole natural evil, moral evil thing, but also into answering. Look, here's some good reasons why God would allow it. You know, rewards in the future, um, soul building, our capacity to enjoy Him, to really actually love. You have to allow choice in order to love. So there's some really good reasons for it. So Why God Allows Evil by Clay Jones, I think is a really great book for this topic.
Yeah. Awesome. And I don't know if you have any more points, but if you had to summarize the Christian answer to suffering in one sentence, if possible, what would it be? Do
Oof.
you think you could do it?
I don't think I can do it in one sentence.
One
I
sentence.
think that I can do it in a couple
Hmm.
sentences. Because God wanted to create creatures that have a free will, He had to give us one way to disobey Him in the good world He created, and that was the Garden of Eden in the tree. He gave one rule. And Adam and Eve disobeyed. Therefore, our species was polluted with sin and death. The world was broken, and Jesus came to reverse that and redeem it. That's the big picture, and there's reasons why He allows us to continue to suffer even after we become believers. You know, so that we can know Him more, so that we can grow, so that we can earn rewards. A whole ton of reasons why. But that's kind of the big idea. One thing too, can I say just a little more about that? That's
Yeah.
right.
Go ahead.
Okay, so I think that there's a really important point to see like the big plan of what God's doing for
Hmm.
Christianity. So when Adam and Eve were in the garden prior to the fall,
Yeah.
they had the ability not to sin, but they didn't have a knowledge of good and evil, right? We don't have the ability to sin after the fall. Like you and I are born and we are broken and we are infected with
Like
sin,
simple creatures.
and we prove to be what we are by our sin.
Yeah.
So we don't have that option anymore. But we do have a knowledge of good and evil, and this life is a lesson in the knowledge of good and evil. Seeing the sin is dumb and it's destructive and it hurts us, and we die.
Hmm.
In heaven, we're gonna retain a knowledge of good and evil, but will also once again have the ability not to sin. And I think that what God is doing through this whole process is He's taking uh free-willed creatures who can actually choose to love Him and choose to listen to what He says, and ensuring that we will never fall back into sin again. A lot of
Yeah.
times people ask me, well, in heaven we shouldn't have free will because we'll do what Adam and Eve did. And I don't think that's the case because of our knowledge of good and evil and the pain and suffering we went through in this life. Once we are freed from sin, I don't think we'll ever choose to go back into it.
Yeah.
And so it's like if I ask you to eat my iPhone, you know, and I say, "Hey, can you eat my iPhone, Trip?"
Mhm.
And you'll say no because it's disgusting. And then I would say, "Well, I'm not asking if you would. I'm asking if you could." Well, and of course you could. You could chew the glass, right? You could eat the silicone. You could eat this plastic stuff on it and the metal, and it would probably kill you.
Yeah.
But you definitely could eat my iPhone. But will you ever choose to eat my iPhone? No, because it's stupid. I think that's what sin is going to be like for us in heaven. We will never want to go back into this because we lived it, because we have a knowledge of it.
Mhm.
And once we're set free and have the ability not to sin anymore, we'll always freely choose to do what we know is the right thing forever and ever. I think that's the plan that God is bringing us towards.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. And again, we see what I talked about earlier was every worldview has to answer this question. And like I said, Christianity's view towards it is so unique, and I think it's so personal that it gives a lot better answers because no, even atheism, and no worldview gets away from this question. Do you have any more points or anything that you feel led to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, one of the things that's important with this whole discussion is defining evil,
Hmm.
not just pointing to examples of it. And on the Christian view, I think the best option is that evil is a privation or it's a lack of good. God created things very good. He didn't create evil.
Yeah.
And that's where the atheist wants to push us and say, if your God made this world, he made it really bad.
Hmm.
No, he didn't. He made it really good and we broke it. And so evil on the Christian definition is that it's a lack of good. It's the destruction of the good thing. It's not a thing in of itself. It's only the tearing down of the good. And so knowing that gives us the ability to say God didn't create it because he can't create non things. He can only create things. Evil's not a thing, therefore God didn't create it. Is a really helpful definition. But I also think it's true to life, right? What is cancer? Cancer is the breaking down of the good body God gave us.
Yeah.
What is rust on a classic car is evil, right? Well, what is it? What's the deterioration of the good thing that already
Hmm.
existed? And so it also helps us establish that you can't have or recognize evil without there first being good. There first has to be a thing to be ruined before you can recognize the ruin. And so just that definition that evil is the lack of good is a really great Christian definition of it.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I'm glad you brought that up because, and another question is, why do you think we feel as humans we instinctively feel like suffering is wrong? Like this thing is painful, or maybe on like the
Hmm.
more of an emotional side. What do you think?
Yeah.
What would be your answer to that?
Well, see, Trip, this is where it's so interesting because from the Christian worldview, it makes sense. From the atheist worldview, it doesn't.
Hmm.
Let's play out the atheist view real quick.
Yeah.
They feel like they don't like suffering and they want to avoid it.
Mhm.
And it's not just physical pain either, right? It's psychological pain, torment, death of family, all of that. But on their view, shouldn't we evolve past feeling bad about those things? Like literally in an atheist worldview, becoming a psychopath is the greatest thing for us, where we don't feel emotion anymore, and we can do whatever we want to prosper the species. But we haven't. We all feel bad about suffering. We all want to avoid it. We all are crushed by it. On the Christian worldview, it tells us that the reason for this is because it's not the way things were supposed to be. And we know deep down this is wrong, this is backwards, this is upside down, this is twisted. And that's why we all human beings recognize it. So I think Christianity is very good at adequately describing the way things really are, and evil is no substitute to that. So we have a real answer for it, and it's because we were created for a good world that wasn't broken. We were created to be a certain type of thing that we're now broken, and we can recognize within ourselves the brokenness, and it's harmful to us. And so I think that's why all human beings don't like suffering, because we
Yeah.
know it's not supposed to be.
Yeah. And like, and this is gonna be a weird question, but I'm curious your response to it. If God removed all suffering today, what would we lose?
Well, the question you have to ask is, okay, how could he do that, right?
Mhm.
So would it be like we live in a world where wood in a house stays firm, but if somebody takes a piece of wood to try to hit somebody with it, it turns to jello? Like how like so now we're manipulating, so now all of the rules of physics are out the window. I mean, or a gun, right? When
Mhm.
you're shooting a target, the bullet stays a bullet, but when you shoot a person, it turns into a marshmallow. Like, how? What does that world even look like? So really, what he would have to do is to alleviate all suffering is to take free will away from everybody, so nobody
Yep.
could choose to make a bad choice. But
Mhm.
that goes against what he wants, because he wants real humans who choose to love him, not robots who are forced to. And so that's where we're at, I think, is in
Mhm.
this world he wants us to choose to trust him. That's why believe is what we need to do to respond to the gospel. He's asking us to make a choice. So the only way I think God could stop all suffering in the world right now is to take away free will from human beings and from demons. I think that's how he could do it. And I think he could do that. I just don't think he wants that trade off, because he wants real humans, real kids who love him, not avatars or robots.
Mhm. No, that's perfect, and I've had people come up to me, and they said, "Well, if God was all loving, he'd take away all pain and suffering," and I was like, That's not necessarily the case because you have to think of free will, and, I
Mhm,
love bringing up free will, especially on this topic, is because it makes people really enter a different perspective, and, where I've had this question at work where someone walked in and, they asked me what I wanted to be, and I was like, "I wanna be an apologist, someone who, defends the Christian faith," and they're like, "Huh,"
mhm,
and, they're like, "Well, I used to be a Christian, but, well, now I've studied and I've seen that, God just can't exist because pain is in the world." And I was like, well,
yeah,
you're taking away free will. And it really made them think from a different perspective. And even when they left the store, they're like, thank you for giving me that
mm,
perspective because it's something that a
that's
lot of
cool.
people don't think about is, if I'm not, it takes away all free will if that happens. And
Yeah.
that's such a big aspect.
It
Um,
is, it's huge, and I think it's crazy because going back to the garden, God only allowed Adam and Eve one way to choose against him. It's like he made it as easy as possible to choose for him, but he had to give at least one possible way they could choose against him, and they did. So even in, like, literally the perfect environment that only has one way to disobey, one rule to keep, they couldn't do it, right? Which again, I think is just fascinating. But God, He really is for us, and He wants to help us, and that's why Jesus is so amazing. He came and He used His human free will to make all the right choices all the time, and that's why we can be qualified for heaven, because His righteousness gets applied to us. But the free will aspect, the free will defense, is the best answer on the Christian view to why God allows evil, for
yeah.
sure.
Absolutely. And what are some final pieces of encouragement you could give to maybe someone listening right now that's maybe dealing with some suffering and pain in their own life, and it's maybe they're going through doubt or just something that's harder for them to understand at this moment.
Yeah, I would say that God knows what you're going through, and He doesn't just know it intellectually; He knows it experientially. Because Jesus came to this world and He lived as one of us, and He went through all the hurts and all the pain and physical pain, emotional pain, psychological pain, all of it. He went through everything, and so we have a God who can empathize with us. And I love the things Jesus said. Right?
Hmm.
Look at the birds of the air. Not one of them falls to the ground, and your father doesn't know about it. How much more important are you, right? How much more important are you as a human being to God than a bird? And He even is observant of their death. He wants you to be okay. He wants to help. He wants to move in. And so I would just encourage him with scriptures like that about how much God really cares for us and really loves us. And even in the hard times we go through, which we all will go through, He's there as our Emmanuel, as God with us, who can comfort us, who can bring us peace that surpasses all understanding, right? Even in the hardships we go through, joy, even through the pain. And so that's what I would encourage people with, Christian, non Christian. I think that is the answer. You're either going to just go it alone and try to let time pass so you might feel a little better, or you can have Jesus walking it with you through it, comforting, guiding, helping. And I think it's a lot better to walk with the God of the universe through the hardships for a time, for these 80 or 90 years we have on earth, than to just try to grit your teeth and get through it by yourself.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. And I'll ask again, is there anything that maybe we haven't talked about yet, or anything you feel we need to cover over this topic?
I would say the last thing is that a lot of people get angry at God because of suffering,
Mhm.
either in their own life or somebody dies, and so you hear those stories a lot, right?
Yeah.
I used to believe in God, but then my mom got cancer, and why would God let that happen? And then, I always answer that as saying, well, why does God let anybody get cancer, right? It wasn't just your mom. There's a lot of people who go through this. You're
Yeah.
not unique. But
Mhm.
so often we want to make our story so unique. Nobody understands this. Nobody's gone through it like me. That's not true. Everything we go through is common to other people, scripture says. But I would say that when we let those emotional pains linger in our hearts for a long time, it does fester doubts. And so, for the Christian, for the non Christian, as we go through suffering, seek out answers to that pain. Seek out answers to those doubts. Don't let them fester because you'll just become bitter and hardened because of an event that happened in the past that was tragic. And so it is fascinating, even with non Christians, man, tragic events make people become bitter and hateful and shrivel up, or they make people get serious about life, right?
Mhm.
We've seen this in so many different ways, and so I would say it's always better to choose to run into the suffering, to lean into the pain, to lean into the doubt, and to find answers for it. So don't let it just fester. Seek out answers, and Jesus Himself, right? If you seek, you'll find. Like He's not far from any of us. Paul said in Acts. So I think that God wants to meet you in the hard you're going through.
No, I love that. And yeah, I think in my own life, where I mean, I've dealt with doubts and anxiety, and it's something that, it created my testimony. It's uh I would say not wasting your suffering, like letting it draw you closer to God is something that's so huge, because it definitely did that with me, where I had doubts because of the pain I was going through and the anxiety, and eventually, it drew me closer. I was
Mm,
praying a lot more, trying to understand why this all was happening, and it broke me down, but God used it to build me up stronger. And I
mm,
think that's something that's so crucial in everybody's life, and I believe it happens to everybody at some point, where there will
yeah,
be a part where pain may break you down, but God will certainly use it to build you up. And
absolutely, man. Totally agree. Well, hey, if any of your listeners want to check out, I just did this fall, I did a 7-week class on why God allows evil,
Mhm.
and it's on our website. So if they go to palmcroft.com and they click on apologetics, it's there. Why God allows evil, it's all on YouTube. Or they could just go to pcapologetics.com and it's all there too. So if they want to check that free resource out, dig a little deeper into this topic, there's that 7-week course.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, and thank everybody for joining us for this conversation. Hopefully, it brought some clarity, comfort, and courage. And we have to remember, God doesn't promise a life without pain, but He does promise His presence will be with us in every moment of it. And to thank you, Robbie, for joining us and helping us understand it a little bit better.
Absolutely,
Thank
Trip.
you so
Thanks so much for
much.
having me. I'm really
Yeah,
excited you're doing this podcast.
yeah, thank you so much.